former advisor to George W. Bush. You're currently on the House Ways and Means. The big march tomorrow, the MAGA march, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany says she expects major turnout. You're going to see counter-protesters. We have a lot of support coming in for President Trump there. Your reaction to that, and now NBC, ABC, CNN calling Georgia and Arizona for Biden. Your thoughts on the race there, the vote count there?
Yeah, well, I think that the electoral process has to run its full course. I think this is paramount to our constitutional democracy, and we've seen this happen before. I worked for George W. Bush as president, as you mentioned, and the Bush v. Gore contention over the election outcome was solved through the court system. And we need to let rule of law and democracy play out before being premature about calling the election. There are serious allegations and irregularities. They need to be substantiated, no question. But it doesn't serve our republic well, and it won't serve whoever ends up president well if the people of this country don't feel like it was fair, open, accurate, and there was legitimacy.
We've got Ken Paxton just telling us moments ago the state of Texas rejected the Dominion voting software, saying the state of Texas didn't trust it. It's used in a number of other states. We have the Pennsylvania Secretary of State saying she will not order a recount of her state's election results if it falls within that margin that would trigger that. Basically, she doesn't see that happening. Rather, she doesn't see a recount happening there. We've got a Philadelphia appeals court just denying all 5 lawsuits from the Trump campaign, a Michigan court rejecting a Trump team lawsuit as well. So the certification of the results could come down next week. How do you see this playing out?
Well, I think they're petitioning to extend the certification while some of these questions are being vetted out, and some of them are constitutional questions that may end up at the Supreme Court. The judicial branch doesn't make the law. Not at the federal level, not at the state level. So there may be questions there. Look, I'm not trying to predict the outcome, and I'm not advocating for this verification of the outcome and the system itself in these states that are in question. I'm simply saying it's good for American democracy. It's good for the president and for public confidence. And so I think it looks like a narrow shot. But I think it has to be exhausted because there's serious concerns, and the voter laws were relaxed in such a way that it certainly opened it up for widespread fraud and error. So we'll have to look at it.
Former White House Chief of Staff was with us last night. Mick Mulvaney would agree with you. The Trump team, they would need to overturn effectively tens of thousands of votes spread over Pennsylvania and 2 other battlegrounds to win. They need to prove individually each and every one of those votes was fraudulent or systemic fraud. So we hear what you're saying. We want to move on to this story. The Republican Party so far is a big winner. The election is not a repudiation of GOP policies, as Democrats say. Democrats will have the slimmest majority in 2 decades in the House, as few as 221 seats. 10 of those Democrats did not back Nancy Pelosi in the last Congress. Her gavel is still in question. We see the name calling and the mudslinging going on. We see Donnie Deutsch saying, you are a, quote, moron if you think the voter is going to go for socialism. He's a TV pundit. We see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in a fight with Senator Joe Manchin, tweeting back at him a death stare she gave to him. He's saying that no way will Democrats and should Democrats back, quote, the crazy socialist agenda, and they should not back defund the police. So this seems like a growing infighting inside the Democrat Party. You're down there. What do you see?
I think it's very contentious, and it's a House divided. I don't see it getting any better as Democrats will determine who will lead the House in their party. I think this election was a referendum on Pelosi's agenda of obstruction, impeachment, and socialism. She made a deal with the radical left. It's a very small group, but it's a very loud group, and she basically gave them the pen to write the legislation. This isn't just rhetoric. They put it on paper. They passed it through the United States House of Representatives, and the American people are not buying it. Minorities have moved to the Republican Party in droves. They're not buying defunding the police and open borders and socialized everything. They know what a disaster, and especially minority communities, my Hispanic fellow Americans who have a heritage in Latin America where they've seen the authoritarian socialist rule and reign and what it does to the people and to the country. It ruins it. So I think that they're not buying identity politics. They don't want a country that has to apologize all the time and pitch one group over the other and keeps us always fighting.
Okay.
They want America that they're proud of, and they want leaders who will fight for them, and they want better opportunities. And that's what they got with President Trump's leadership and with Republican policy. So it's an affirmation on Republican policies as well.
Okay, Congressman Jodey Arrington, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Elizabeth.